Baby, here I go, start the show. Beat on my heart, now about to explode. I'm about to explode. Feel good, what I'm feeling.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Ignite Your TruSelf. I am Ericka Sallee, your host for tonight's conversation, transformation success coach, and yes, owner of True Synergy. As a result of my personal coaching and professional development programs, I help women and organizations to figure out what stands in the way of their success. And then, of course, after we figure out what those barriers are, I love to be able to provide the strategies to help you move beyond those barriers so that you can create the best version of yourself, which in essence is your true self. So I'm excited to be sharing with you tonight. So for those of you who can join this conversation live, let me be the first to say thank you for stopping in. And for those who will see the replay later on, I do encourage you to share it out with your community. So these are conversations during this show that really help you to figure out what is it that may be standing in the way of your success. And then, of course, giving you just a little bit of a spark to keep you moving forward to be your best version. Now, let me explain what that means, because some people may be saying, well, what is it to live in my best version, to experience the true self that I'm supposed to be, or what is my true synergy? Well, I'm glad that you asked, or at least you're thinking about that question. What it really means is that you are determined to live purposefully, live a fulfilling life. You are determined to be connected to the things that bring you joy, bring you peace, bring you happiness, and allow you to experience the healthiest, best place that you can be mentally, physically, and spiritually. And that can show up in every single area of your life, personally and professionally. And so these are the conversations, just a few minutes every week, that I get to share with you some of those things that may be holding you back. And you get to take those nuggets away that I share every week, and then you get to fit it into the pattern of your own life and use it in the way that you see fit to get to wherever next is for you. So before we get started with the conversation for tonight, yes, it is still Black History Month. And so for the last few weeks, I have been sharing things that I've been learning, excited about, and wanting to pass those along to you. Now, many of us have heard the stories about the well-known figures in Black history, like the Rosa Parks of the world, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and so many others. But there are other names that I want to bring to the forefront, just so that we can really think about the richness of what we have contributed to this country and beyond. So tonight, I wanted to share with you about John Mercer. So in 1854, John Mercer Langston, I'm sorry, I left off the second part of his last name. So John Mercer Langston, let me give him the proper call for his name. John Mercer Langston notably became the first African-American lawyer in the state of Ohio. He went on to serve as the dean of the law department and vice president of the HBCU, Howard University. He's also remembered as the first African-American from Virginia to be elected to public office, which was specifically the United States Congress. So this fact about John Mercer Langston comes to you from oprahdaily.com. So if you want to find out more about John Mercer Langston, then you want to be sure to look him up and find out more information, of course, from a reputable resource. And you can start with mine, oprahdaily.com. So before we get into the topic for tonight, I do want to remind you that if you are watching this live, or if you happen to come back in to see the replay, then yes, I do want you to use the hashtag Ignite Your True Self. Remember, that is TRUSELF, not TRUE. So I want to make sure that I'm clear about that. Use the hashtag Ignite Your True Self. Let your community know what you are up to on this evening, and do encourage them to also listen and get something that they may need. All right, so let's get into the topic for tonight's conversation. Tonight, I want to talk about my prioritization system. Okay. Now, I'm going to share this with you because I am absolutely sure that I'm not the only one who has a to-do list. Okay. And many times when we have a to-do list or multiple lists, depending on how you separate those. Like, you might have a list for yourself, you might have one for your children, one for your spouse, you might have one for things that you have to do at work, things that you have to do personally. And so, however that looks, I'm going to share with you this system that you can use to help you to tackle those lists in a way that helps you to actually get things done. Now, a lot of times when we are looking at multiple things that we have to do, one of the first things that happens oftentimes is that we get overwhelmed. If you're looking at multiple things and you're like, oh my gosh, there's so many things on this list, I don't know where to get started, I don't know what to do first. Can I really invest the time, the energy, and effort into every single one of these things? And sometimes we think we can do it all at one time, and that's when the problem sets in. It's when we start to feel that angst, we start to feel the overwhelm. Over the last couple of weeks, I've been talking about this topic, how to avoid overwhelm. I've talked about self-care multiple times. And so if you continue to share in this space with me, or if you see the things that I post, if we work together in a coaching or professional development relationship, you will hear me talk often about several things that feed into our well-being. And when we are overwhelmed, then of course that has implications for us mentally, physically, and spiritually. It weighs on us and causes lots of other problems that we should do our best to avoid. Okay. And so when you think about trying to prioritize things that you have going on, this is where the system can come into play and really help you to manage those things in a way that's best for you, and that allows you to feel some level of success and accomplishment, because you can actually not just look at the list, but you have the opportunity to check some things off to say, you know what, yes, I got that done. And I'm going to share with you how in just a moment. So why is this a problem? I talked about this maybe last week or week before. But again, when we have so many things to do and we're really not sure where to start, there's a couple things that are going to happen. Number one, we may have a tendency to spin our wheels on things that we really aren't making traction on, because we feel like we need to at least account for doing something without really seeing the benefit or the outcome that we expect. Or when we have all of these lists of things to do, we might look at that list and we might say, oh my gosh, there's so many things on here. Let me just put this down. I'm not going to do any of it because I don't even know where to start. And so then you might look up and say, man, well, what did I actually get accomplished? Because I've been avoiding, because I really don't know where to start. So that becomes a problem, because something on that list probably needs your attention, and it could be the very thing to help you get to whatever that next best version, or dare I say, your true self. But if you ignore it or you don't put the right time, energy, and effort into it, then you may be missing out on that thing that's going to get you closer to where you want to be, that's going to make you feel good about where you are in life, mentally, physically, and spiritually, right? And that's really a disservice to you and to anyone who is blessed by what you have to offer to the world. All right. So when this conversation is over, here's what I want you to think about. I want you to know that, you know what? I may have this list of things to do, but there is a way for me to move through it and to be able to have a productive or productive outcomes. All right. So let me just jump right into it. There really are 4 categories when you think about prioritization. Like how do I put these things together? I've shared this multiple times in other forums, and I'm just going to take a piece of this to give to you tonight, and then I'm going to share with you how you can expand this, get a little bit more, because this is just like one little piece of a broader picture. Okay, but I think it's at least enough to give you so that you can take it and figure out, okay, I got this little something, so if I can apply this right away, then that's going to be better for me. And so that is another thing I want you to keep in mind. So if you happen to be in a place where you can take notes, then I do encourage you to write down the things that I'm going to share with you about this prioritization system, because it is something that you can walk away from this conversation and apply immediately. Okay, I want to say that again, immediately. So the system includes 4 specific categories. Okay, I'm going to share those categories with you. I'm going to explain to you what they are, and then I'm going to give you some examples. Okay, now I'm sure that as I start to explain it, you're going to know right away, like it's going to make sense to you, but applying it is where you're really going to see the benefit. All right. So the 4 categories, the first category, and again, this is my prioritization system. This is how I figure out what needs to happen, and how I can really attack the things that are on my list in a way that helps me feel like I'm actually getting some things done. And here's what I want to say. One of the things that I want us to remember, and I say us because I have to remind myself of this often. A lot of times we write lists, and those lists can have 5, 10 things on them. And that's the other part that feels like it's a lot for us. What I've come to learn is that if I have 1 or 2 things on my list that really help me to um, feel like those 1 or 2 things can really address maybe like 3 other things, or maybe it's really one big thing. And if I take care of that, as opposed to trying to, get 5, 10 things done, then that might be a benefit. Okay. And that's going to depend on what you may be working on at a particular time. But I just wanted to mention that because some of us feel like, oh gosh, if I only do one of these things today, then have I really done anything, or have I been successful? We have a tendency to feel like I've got to do like 25 million things. Okay, I'm exaggerating, but you get the point, in order to feel like I've accomplished something. So we can perhaps kind of put that myth to the side and think about it from a different perspective. So in these 4 categories, the first is when you say no. Okay. So let's say you have a list of things. Let's say you have a list of 8 things, that you're looking at, and you're like, oh my gosh, these are the things that I need to do. Okay. So when you really look at that, one of the categories is a definite no. This is something that you will not do, period. Okay. There's no ifs, there's no ands, there's no buts. And it may be something that sits there for a while, but after you think about it, after you do some analysis, you kind of do some pondering, you look at really what's important to you at the time, then you might say, okay, this is a definite no. Let me give you an example. So a dear friend of mine recently celebrated his birthday, big trip, going to a beautiful, beautiful island. And I had committed to going because I wanted to celebrate this time, had booked my airfare, had locked in my deposit for the room. And the more I thought about what was happening in my space at the time, I had some other priorities, I had some other expenses, and I had to really think about whether or not that was the best decision for me in that moment. So after I thought about it, I looked at my own books, my own budget, the other things that were on my to-do list. I had to make this particular trip a no. Now, let me tell you, it hurt me to my heart because I wanted to be a part of the celebration. This is someone who is near and dear to my heart. And I'm thinking, how can I not be there to celebrate, this big milestone with him? And I had to move beyond that. I had to really think about what was the priority at the time. In this particular instance, this was a no. Okay. So again, the first of the four categories is no. It is something that you know you will not do. And sometimes it's hard to say no. But when you really think about it and you kind of take ego out of it sometimes, then you recognize that, okay, there are some things that just have to be no. And this was an example of one of those things. So let's talk about the second of the four categories, and that is something that is a not now. Okay. And what that means is you're looking at your to-do list and you say to yourself, okay, I know this is here, but this is really not something for right now. This is something that I'm going to need to delay. I need to move this to another point in time. And I'll talk about that a little bit before we move on to the next category. So what is one example? Well, I had been talking about doing a lot of remodeling in my home within the last couple of years. It actually started during COVID. And so, I wanted to do things like get new paint. I wanted to get a backsplash in my kitchen. I wanted to paint my kitchen cabinets. God knows I need a new kitchen floor. So I'm looking at all of these things. Okay. And so there were lots of things that I was able to do. I got some painting done, got some new furniture. I was able to get the backsplash in the kitchen. And then when I got to the point of looking at the cabinets and the floor, I thought, okay, here's some other expenses, right? So I had to think about whether or not that was something that needed to happen in the moment. And so those two things, the floor and the cabinets, ended up being a not now. It was something that wasn't really necessary in the moment. It was something that I could kind of put off and get away with. Okay, I can map this out to a different point in time so that I can come back to it later. Now, when you think about something on your list that's a not now, you do want to think about, if it's not now, then when do I move it to? Okay. So for me, that not now with just those two examples, the kitchen cabinet, the kitchen floor, I have not yet defined when that will move from a not now to a need to. Okay. Because I've had some other things that have come into place. I've kind of put that off into like a later category. Like I don't really need to focus on it in this very moment. I know that it's something on the list, and at some point in time, it will come back and I'll have to reassess it. So when you move something on your list into a not now category, the key is to revisit it. And you get to define, okay, I'll revisit this once a month. I'll revisit this once a quarter. And it may be something that you revisit once a year. Like right now, those two things are probably in the once a year category. Now, I'm not talking 5 years, but it's just something that I'm not even entertaining in this very moment. So if you have something on your list and you say, well, you know what, this is a not now, then you can just define, well, when will I come back and revisit this so that I can figure out where it needs to move? Because you might look at it and say, you know what, this is really a no. And I'll talk about how as you reassess these things, they may change to a different category. But initially, when you look at your list, you can kind of go through and say, okay, this is a no, this is a not now. Okay, so that's number 2. So let's move on to the third category in the process. And that is to designate something as a nominate. And nominate simply means that it's something that you will hand off to someone else. All right. Now, part of the thing that keeps us in this angst, in the overwhelm, in the confusion about, oh my gosh, there's so many things on this list, is because we think that we have to do everything. I want you to type it in the comments if you have ever experienced, or if you have ever been in conversation with someone who does not want to relinquish certain things. Okay. Sometimes we feel like, oh gosh, I cannot nominate or give this off or hand it off or designate it to someone else because if I do, well, they may not do it exactly the way I want them to do it, or they may not do it in exactly the time that I need it, or it's just not, it's not going to be right. And have you ever either thought that or you've had someone who wasn't willing to nominate something to you because maybe they felt that way? Okay, if that's ever been your thought process at any point in time, then please do type it in the comments. There she is, Jaquista. Happy Thursday or Friday Eve, as I like to say. It hindered my growth on my job, and I guess I do it a little bit. Okay, so yeah, I think that we have all been guilty of wanting to hold on to something, especially if it's something that we've been doing for a really long time, and we get comfortable and we don't want to let something go because maybe we feel like we're losing a part of who we are, we're losing a part of something that really connects us to something specific, and we don't want to release that. But can I tell you that when it comes to prioritizing, that we actually free ourselves up to nominate to other people for two reasons. One is that it gives us the freedom that we might need to unclog, open up some other time, effort, and energy that we could be spending on the next category, which I'm going to get to in a moment. The second thing that nominating does is that it actually helps the other person. Let's say that you're in a job situation and there's something on your list that maybe a colleague can take that they've never done before. And this is an opportunity, one, for you to free up some things on your list and free up some time for you, but it also gives this other person an opportunity to learn something new, to grow and to expand for themselves. So that's the benefit of nominating. So let me give you an example. So one of the things that I nominate in my house is my son doing some of the chores that when he's not here, maybe he's with his dad, that I do when he's not here. But when he is here, taking out the trash, doing the kitchen floor are two areas that I've nominated, that I've given to him. That's two less things that I have to do, and it helps him to learn responsibility. During COVID, one of the things that I nominated to my daughter when she was here, she had to spend her last semester here at home, just like many other kids who were in college. They had to come home. And so one of the things that I nominated to her was, can you take over this social media calendar for me? Because just having to do it, to post the things, it was just something that I wanted to relinquish. Now I'm at the stage where I am nominating some marketing tasks to my marketing manager to help me with the upcoming release of my second book. There's so much intertwined. There's so much that really is out of my how do I want to say this? Out of my realm of just understanding, that I feel like this is something that I want someone else to help me with. And so a lot of times we think, oh gosh, I let me hold on to it because I know I can do it. But there comes a moment in time where we have to get real with ourselves and, one, know if something is out of the purview of our own skill set that we need to incorporate someone else's skill set into. And then, as I said before, it also allows other people to expand and use their gift in a way that can be beneficial to you and to them. And then, of course, if it's someone who is wanting to learn something new, then nominating is a wonderful thing to do. Yeah, that's a good point. So one comment says they're losing what they think is job security. That is a great point. And sometimes we feel like if I give this away, then that means I am taking something away from myself that I'm attaching value to. And it is absolutely something to consider. But oftentimes it may be something we've created in our own mind to tell us that. and it causes us to want to hold on to things. Now, when we do that, there may also be moments where we're holding on to the things and we're still complaining. I've had experiences with colleagues over the years where, you hear people complaining, oh my gosh, this is a lot. I have so many things to do. And then the moment you say, hey, can I help you with something? Can I take something off of your plate? It's like, oh, no, I can handle it. I got it. So it's like, well, which is it? Do you want to hold on to it? Do you want me to help you? Because this is an opportunity where you can nominate this to me or to someone else. So there's a whole conversation around that, part of that too. And I'm just going to drop this here. There's a whole discussion around this, but oftentimes when we prevent ourselves, or when we refuse, or when we avoid nominating, it is around control. It's like we want to maintain control, which says there's something else going on in our space that would help to address that control, so that we can release the control and also release that thing or those things that we can hand off to someone else. So that's a deeper conversation than what I'll get into tonight. But oftentimes that is the barrier, that if we are reluctant to hand off to someone else, it's because we want to hold on to that level of control in a way that can sometimes become unhealthy and is coming from another place that is perhaps unresolved within us. Okay, so let me talk about the fourth category in this prioritization system, and that is need to. Need to is what we absolutely have to get done. It is non-negotiable. There's no question about it. And it is something that we absolutely need to do for ourselves. Okay. So I'm going to give you an example of a need to. So right now, and I'm saying right now, but it's really not right now. It's been a pattern for quite a while. One of my need tos is that I have to take care of myself. Okay. You've heard me talk about this. I'm going to keep talking about it. Today won't be the last time that you'll hear this, because it's just that important. But one of my need tos is I absolutely have to take care of myself. And in taking care of myself, that means that I am giving my body physical activity. It means that I'm making the healthiest choices that I possibly can make outside of the ice cream sundae that I had the other night when I went out to join some folks for happy hour. But I thought, you know what? Haven't had this in a while. So I'm going to enjoy this and I'm going to give myself grace. But aside from that, my goal is to ensure that, yes, that I am exercising, that I'm eating the right foods. That's very important to me. So why is this a need to? Why is it non-negotiable? Why is it something that I absolutely have to get done? Well, my why is because now I'm in my 50s. And it is important to me to be the healthiest version of myself, because I have lots of things that I want to get accomplished. And I believe that for me, in order for me to do those things, I have to be the healthiest version. I have to have the energy, the stamina to be able to do those things. That is absolutely non-negotiable. One of my other need tos is exactly what you see me doing right now, is that I need to make sure that my water intake on a daily basis, which fits into the taking care of myself, but it's just an example. I need to drink at least 3 of these a day. Now, I sometimes lose track, like how many, but I can tell how many bottles I've had, because I have a tendency, my kids will attest to this, is that a lot of times I get down to like right here, and there's like this much water left in the bottles, and I can see the bottles all around. I see them on the kitchen counter. I see them on the table. I see them here in my office as I'm, going through the day. So that helps me to remember, like, how much did you actually drink? I need to do that. One of the other things that is important, that is a need to, is that based on the goals that I've set for myself for the year, I need to invest a certain amount of time every week on specific goals. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I've set aside time to perform specific tasks to help me to get to those goals. Those are need tos for me. You might have a different list of need tos based on where you are right now in your personal or professional journey, but it is absolutely something that you know needs to get done. You might be thinking about it from a professional perspective, and maybe you are responsible for a report once a month or once a week, and you know that's a need to because it's something that goes to a client that you serve. So it's non-negotiable about you having to do this. So when you look at that, you might say, okay, if I know that this is a need to, this has to go to the customer. Let me use the week as an example. This has to go to the customer every week. And so you know that's a need to. You might look at 5 other things on your list for the week. And you might have to go through and say, let's say, for instance, you've got this report, somebody's sending you an email and they're saying, hey, can you do X, Y, and Z? And you might go back to them and say, well, when do you need this to happen? When do I have to respond to you? They might say, oh, sometime next week. So you already know that that particular thing is a not now, because you've got this need to, you've got this report, you've got a not now, which is next week. And so you know that when this report is over, the need to is over, then you can go to that not now, that next week then becomes a need to. Okay, so hope you followed that. That's an example of how things in the categories can shift. So you get to decide how you move these things around. It's almost like playing a game. Okay, this is a system where you get to look at a list and you say, okay, I'm going to go through this list and I'm going to define, I'm going to run back through the 4 categories in just a moment, and allow you to kind of recap with me and be thinking about maybe some of the things that are on your list. And again, I'm going to say this because I think this is important, is that you get to walk away from this conversation and apply it immediately. Now, you might be thinking in your head all the things, and maybe you haven't written those down. So giving you this system tonight will maybe allow you to take the things out of your head, write them down on a piece of paper, and then apply these 4 categories to your list. Or maybe you already have that list. So now you might have been saying, oh gosh, I don't want to look at this because I know there's so many things. So you can now look at that list and you can say, all right, let me apply these 4 categories and see where I end up. You might have a list of, I'm gonna go back to the 8 things. And when you go through this system, you might walk away and say, out of these 8 things, there's only really 2 things on this list that is a need to. And then you get to work with those 2 things. And then you get to go through the other 6 things on the list, put those in their proper category, and then you move from there. All right. So I'm going to talk about the need tos in just a moment and how you attack that, because you might say, oh gosh, well, you know what? Now I've got 2 need tos and I'm not sure which one of those 2 to focus on. So I'll talk about that in just a moment. But before I do, and we're going to wrap up in just a few moments, I do want to share with you that this process, this system is actually a part of a larger process. Okay. So I'm going to also invite you. I am actually doing a second session of Gain Clarity to Get Results for Any Change using 6 simple steps. This prioritization system is actually step number 3 out of the 6, but I decided to pull this out and share with you tonight because I know I've had lots of conversations with people like, oh my gosh, there's so much going on. I'm overwhelmed. I don't know where to start. So I wanted to have this conversation now because at least it gives you a place to start. But if you're saying to yourself, there's a lot of things happening, and I want to be able to take these 4 categories and I want to have a deeper dive on these and figure out how to really take these 4 and then move it into the next space so that I have some traction and I can keep moving forward, then I'm going to invite you to go ahead and register for this next session. It's happening March the 15th at 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will post the registration link after the live is over, so that if you are interested in not just going back through these 4 categories in this system, but you get to see how it applies to the overall system when it comes to how to be clear about what it is you want to do, how to take that clarity and drill down using this process, and then how to take this process and really expand it into even a broader picture for yourself, so that you say, you know what, all right, I got this. I can repeat this. When things come up, I've got something that I can apply. So yes, registration is open. And again, that's March the 15th at 7:00 p.m. It is a live session that I will be conducting to go through this process in a little bit more depth, and you'll really see how it connects to some other pieces that really make this system work well for you. All right, so let me go back and recap really quickly. So again, we're talking about a 4 category system that helps you to prioritize your to-do list. If you're looking at things and you're trying to figure out, oh gosh, how am I going to do this? What am I going to do? What do I attack first? There's so much coming at me. Then these are the 4 categories that you can use to help you. Again, number 1, the first category is to, no. You're looking at your list and you're like, I can look at this and say, nope, this isn't going to happen. As much as I might want to, as much as I might have thought it was a good idea, as much as it may have felt like it was a priority, as much as it may have felt like, yeah, I can do that. You may go back and look at that and say, you know what? It's a no. This one is probably one of the biggest boundaries to help you to incorporate self-preservation for yourself. Not just so that you reduce the overwhelm on your to-do list, but also so that you can maintain your mental, your physical, your spiritual well-being. No. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. You can go back and you can check out that show. It's like, how do you say no? And what are the benefits of that? So I'm going to move on because that's probably deeper conversation than what we have for the rest of tonight's show. But the next category is a not now. It's something that you are going to delay. Now, let me say this, because a not now is a little bit different from I'm just procrastinating and I'm just putting it off. I'm just not going to do it. This category is giving you the opportunity to say not now with some thought and with some planning. So again, this is, if I don't do it now, then I'm going to set a time frame to reassess it, come back to it to determine if it's still a not now or if it needs to move to another category. Okay, so that's a little bit different than just putting things off. Sometimes we procrastinate, we put things off because we're like, oh gosh, I'm avoiding it. This is not that. This is a little bit more in depth. This is a little bit more thought-provoking and really helps you to structure and create, as opposed to just putting some things off and avoiding because you just don't want to do it. The third category, again, is to nominate. This is to hand something off to someone else. And when you do that, it is also trusting. It's also trusting and coming to terms with the fact that if I nominate this, there is a possibility that this person is going to do it differently than what I would do. But if it means it's still going to get done in a way that is acceptable and that relieves me, then it's okay. So that's the part of the nomination process that we really have to come to terms with and be okay with the fact that, yeah, it may be a little bit different. Yeah, there may be some steps in there that somebody else does or doesn't do that I may not have done or would do, but it's okay. And that's the part that I know makes some people nervous, because you're like, oh gosh, but it really is understanding that we are not the only ones who can do something and do it well and well enough. All right. So that is category number 3. And then the last category is the need to category, where it's something that absolutely has to get done. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And when you define those need tos, you can really hone in on where you want to spend your time, energy, and effort. All right. So, and let me say this before I give the final thought. When you look at that list, I know one of the things that you may have a tendency to do is, again, using the 8 things. You might look at all 8 things and you may say, but all of these are need to. And I would say, but is it really? Like, is it really? Well, I need to do this. I need to, but yeah, I need. If you look through that list and you define everything as a need to, I would challenge you to look back through the list a second, third. You may even have to look back through it a fourth or fifth time and say, okay, let me be realistic with myself. Like, are all of these things need tos? And am I really, really giving each one of these things the proper thought process to know that I can prioritize these a little bit differently? All right, so that's a challenge. No, it might not be easy for some, but it's something that I would encourage you to do. So if you look at your list and you're like, but they're all need tos, reassess it, reevaluate it, and then figure out if that is in fact a true statement. So how does this process help you to ignite your true self? How does this prioritization method, this strategy, this system help you to get closer to your best version, who you desire to be, or what goal you desire to set for yourself? And it's really simple. I said it a couple minutes ago and I'll say it again, is that when you use this system, what you're really doing is you're focusing on the things that will give you the greatest return on your investment. I want to say that again. When you use this system, you're really connecting, you're really aligning yourself with the thing that is going to give you the greatest return on your investment. So let's think about that for a really quick moment. So if I say, igniting your true self is about allowing yourself to tap into the essence of who you were created to be. It's allowing you to tap into the things that are going to align you with your purpose, with being fulfilled, with feeling happy, with feeling joyful, with feeling like, you know what, I've accomplished something. And when we do that, like, just think about when you are able to check something off the list or you get something done, you're like, man, I feel really good about that. Like, I got that done. That feeling is really the essence. Like, that's our inner essence. Like, it is the creator's intent for us to feel that joy, to feel that type of good connection, the positive energy. And so all of that is what connects us to our true self. When we're frustrated, angry, in angst, we're overwhelmed, that's really not aligning with what's going to make us not just feel good, but put goodness out into the world. So when you're able to prioritize your things that have to be done, and you really start to focus on, where am I going to spend my time? Where am I going to spend my energy? What effort am I going to give to this? This system helps you to get clear with that. So that return on your investment is like, when you're investing your time, when you're investing energy, when you're investing, calling or emailing or having conversations where you can see that outcome in a favorable way, that return on the investment of that energy, that time, that effort, all of that is then what you see the output giving you on the other end. Okay. So when we talk about connecting this to your true self, connecting this to your best version, that's how that shows up. Okay. So as we prepare to wrap up, if you have any questions about that, any comments, I do encourage you to drop those in the comments before we wrap up in the next 30 seconds while we prepare for you to do that. I do want to also invite you again, gain clarity, get results for any change. That's anything that you plan to do this works. These 6 simple steps. This process that I'm sharing with you tonight is step number 3 out of the 6, but I wanted to pull it out, share it with you tonight. But if you want to go deeper into this conversation and really apply it for you, then I do encourage you to register for the session coming up March the 15th from 7 to 8, about 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yes, it is a lot to chew on. Absolutely. There are some adjustments too that need to be made in order for us to process this, which is partly what the Gain Clarity, Get Results session is all about, because, we've got to shift some things around in our mindset in order to really embrace this system, number one, and then to really relinquish some of the old ways that we think about things in order to prioritize your list in a realistic way. Okay, so it is a lot to think about, but hopefully you got enough that you can not just chew on it for tonight, but that you can say, okay, let me try to apply it. And if you just kind of test yourself out, because I know that somebody's watching right now, they're like, oh my gosh, I've got this, and this to do. So try it out. Like, take these 4 categories and apply it to the to-do list that's either sitting in your face right now as you're listening to me, or the one that's in your head that you need to get out of your head and commit to paper. And then put these steps to work and just kind of see how it shows up for you. And of course, if you're in the midst of it and you're like, oh gosh, I need to figure out now what, then that's when the Gain Clarity, Get Results for any change using these 6 simple steps will come into play, and we can dig a little bit deeper. So on that note, and I will post the link for you to register for that again, March the 15th at 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you have additional questions and you're just like, okay, I'm sitting here, I'm trying to process all these things. Okay, I hear that the session March the 15th is coming up. I'm interested in that. I'm going to register for that. And you might also be saying, okay, I still have some other questions. Feel free to reach out to me at trusynergy.org. There is an opportunity to click the link at the top of the page to contact me, and we can set up a discovery session just to have a conversation about what's happening in your space, what you may need at this point in time, and then how I can support you. So I'm going to encourage you to join me next time. And actually, I did not put this here in on the screen, but the topic for next week is, what old stories are you telling yourself? Now that is probably something that I could probably spend an exorbitant amount of time on, but we're going to talk about it next week in the small block of time that we have for Ignite Your True Self. So what old stories are you telling yourself? Those stories can absolutely be barriers to you being that best version. And I'll get into more of that on next week. So remember to follow me on Instagram at TrueSynergy_. You can also follow me on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn at Ericka Sallee. You'll see my link tree at the bottom of the screen, which will connect you to all of the social media platforms. If you happen to be watching this on YouTube, then I do encourage you to subscribe to the channel, share it out, and then turn the notification bell on so that you are updated or alerted when new videos are uploaded. If you happen to be missing the live tonight and you want to go back and check it out, you can find it on my YouTube channel. You'll find it in the live section. If you go to the channel, there's a live link. You can click on that and you can see tonight's show and all the others that preceded this one. All right. So on that note, I'm so excited that you had the opportunity to join me for tonight's conversation. I do encourage you to join me next week for our next topic. What old stories are you telling yourself? But in the meantime, until I see you again, I want you to take care of yourselves. And yes, be well. Have a good night. Enjoy the rest of your week and your upcoming weekend.